workers!
Then Gaz. Okay, what's that
Oh, now we're
saying?
going. Recording in progress.
Okay, that looks like we're on the go.
This meeting is being recorded. I've just been warned by Zoom.
Yeah, so don't say anything too bad. Don't yeah,
I'll try my best.
Keep it all all safe. Keep it all PG.
Yeah.
So
where are you? You home?
What's it?
Are you at home, are you?
Yeah, I'm at home.
Yeah.
See, glorious background.
Yeah.
So our first recording for Too Old to Punk, with Gaz, my old mate Gaz, who's also going to be recording and interviewing other people as part of this series, whatever it will be. But before we try things out, talking to Gaz, because Gaz has plenty of stories. And Gaz actually used to have his little blog on the go for a while, didn't you, Gaz?
Yeah.
What was your blog called, Gaz?
Punk Rock and Coffee. I don't know why it was called that. I mean, I did start off with like writing stories about being mainly in a punk band and touring and in a DIY band. And I think the title comes somewhere connected to like coffee and cigarettes for some reason. And I thought punk rock and coffee sounded good, but I didn't actually write that much about coffee. So to compensate for that, I put little pictures. I had like a little photo log of cups of coffee from all over the world, where I'd been like playing in different towns, like cup of coffee in Amsterdam, cup of coffee in Copenhagen. That was the only coffee bit in it, really. But it kind of
bourgeois punk coffee reviews.
Classic one of those things where you just like, when you come up with a name for something you haven't even really started yet and have no idea where it's going.
And then you realise it's not
10 years later, like, why did I call it that?
Is that still going? Are you still doing anything for that?
Nah, I mean, it's still, I actually just got my reminder a couple of weeks ago to like pay for the domain registration thing. Like it's like a yearly thing. And that comes up now every year. And I think, shit, I really should write something again because it's been a while now. It hasn't been active for a couple of years now, I don't think. That's also like, what's that?
When did you start doing that?
I started doing it pretty much around the time I started playing in Victims in
Right.
2009.
That's
Uh,
cool.
because then it turned out pretty like to be a good sort of part of my life to do it in because we were touring quite a lot with Victims then. I mean, not like Speedhorn had been before that, but still
Do you
doing
know
it.
what? We should probably start from the beginning if we're recording all this because we've gone kind of in mid Gaz's career, haven't we? Really?
Maybe, yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. So
Or for your daughter to edit.
so me and you have one thing in common. We come from the arse ends of England, not actually
Yeah.
too far away from each other, really. But
No,
so tell
quite
us a
close.
little bit about where you grew up, and maybe say a little bit about what it's like where you grew up, and actually how you first got into punk or heavy music or whatever.
Yeah. Well, I come from a town called Corby in Northamptonshire, which is probably quite like your town in Lincolnshire. It's
Check.
like industry. It's one of like England's like so-called new towns, where it was just this little village up until about the 1940s with not really much going on there. And then they opened up like a huge steelworks, like a Scottish company, opened a steelworks and took with them like mass migratory employment from Scotland and from Wales, where my family came from. So, and the whole town, I mean, it had like monopolized employment in the town. It was half the town worked at this steelworks kind of thing, including my dad and his brothers and all my family and pretty much all our friends' parents had worked there at some point. My family were from Wales, moved up after the mines closed there in South Wales. And this town, it's like a sort of one industry town, which then the steelworks closed down over a period of 2 or 3 years in the beginning of the 80s. And you can imagine what kind of, it left a huge hole in the town, a lot of unemployment, a lot of sort of social issues, and, there wasn't really much there except pubs
Yeah.
and some factories left. And that was about it. So it wasn't like which didn't particularly affect me so much when I was a kid because my just before they closed, my dad had kind of jumped ship to the post office and he was working like at the post office and then driving taxis at the weekend. So he was working 2 jobs and mum was home. And when you're a kid, the main thing what you care about is somewhere to play football or play in the woods or whatever. And so but when I got to the age of like 14, 15 and started becoming interested in other things and just playing football every day, then it starts hitting you like how there really isn't much to do in that town. There wasn't even like a train station to get out of there, so
Yeah.
and no bowling alley, nothing like that, no cinema, nothing like that. It was fuck all, pretty much just pubs and factories. And yeah, but everyone there is kind of most people there from like Scottish heritage, or Welsh Irish, or and even like some East European as well. And most pretty much the entire town has some sort of relationship with the steelworks, and it was a trauma for the town when that closed down. Like the whole town's identity kind of disappeared with it. You know what I mean?
So when did you then, in that kind of sort of background, when did you sort of first come across or get into sort of heavy music? Was it punk first, or was it like, I don't know, metal, or what
It
was
was
it?
Yeah, it was more like metal. Like it was through I mean, my dad was always big into music. He's a massive music fan from he was born like 1950, so grew up in the 60s and the heyday of like, the psychedelic era and the Beatles and Stones. And he also loves like a lot of blues and 50s rock and roll and Elvis and things like that. But he had a lot of records at home, but then he was also into like other, stuff like Sabbath and Zeppelin and then even things like Captain Beefheart and things like that, which, so my dad kind of never forced music onto me, but he was always playing music, so it was always present. When he was at home and had a bit of time, to himself, he'd have his records on, or as soon as we were in the car, it was his music that was playing. And so around the age of 10, 11, all of a sudden, like from just being this football mad young kid, uh, which my dad was as well. He kind of, he indoctrinated me into football and stuff. But all of a sudden, I remember when I was like 10 or 11, like I just started like the summit started kind of moving inside me. It's his music he used to play. Just I think if it became familiar, I just started feeling like getting a feeling for music. It's like it started doing something inside me internally. And first it was like the Stones, which I really liked, the His and the Kinks and things like that. And then when I kind of discovered his Black Sabbath record and his Zeppelin stuff and all that, then really there was something about the energy in the music and the heaviness of it which really attracted me.
Did
And
you?
then being sort of 12, 13 years old, and most kids at school that are like, into like electronic music and pop music and even stuff like Prodigy and things like that, and rave was getting big then. I was looking for something that was of my time and modern, but guitar music because I was really into guitars and I
Were
love
you
like
playing guitar? Were you playing guitar then? Had you started playing guitar?
no, but it wasn't long after that I kind of got just immersed in music. And then a friend of mine at school, because I was like saying looking for something else that wasn't sort of pop or rave or dance music. And then a friend of mine at school introduced me to like Metallica, and I think he had like the one 7-inch single at home, and I was like, wow, there's still like modern bands making vinyl. That's what, and I was like, yeah. And then it was like so Metallica, and then Maiden and Anthrax and things like that. And then my dad, bless him, who was just loved the idea that I was getting into music myself, like offered to take me and this friend to see Metallica at like the NEC in Birmingham, 91, I think. I think I was like 13. And that was, then it was like after that the lid had been blown off and came away from that concert wanting to start a band, And so then we kind of sort of navigated ourselves to other people in our year at school who were, noticing they were like starting to grow their hair a bit longer as well. Like I was starting to grow my hair a bit longer, and all right, so and kind of get connected that way. And then we like decided to I then got a bunch of friends, 5 or 6 of us, who was like all into like the same kind of heavier music and long hair and blah blah blah. And we decided to start a band, and we decided before any of us could play who was going to do what. So I wanted to be the guitarist, and my other
Right.
friend was play guitar. My friend Beanie was going to play drums, and my friend James was going to play bass. And so then we like formed a band before we had any instruments, and then all went home to our parents and said, "Right, for Christmas, I want a guitar." And my dad was delighted; he was chuffed. And before we knew it, we were like either playing like the guitarist James' parents' practicing there, like in his living room, or in my dad's garage. And my dad had come in from like his on his tea break from the post office and see us practicing, and just he was just chuffed,
It's
and that,
classic.
that
Classic. It's funny. It makes me think of like growing up, and my dad was super supportive as well. And we were
yeah,
like sitting in the shed or in the front room. Classics,
yeah.
like the sort of areas we come from. But at that point, though, were you like, did you have like a sound that you were going for, or was this just like super early days, or were you thinking, right, we're gonna go super heavy, or was none of that on the
No,
card?
I mean, I thought it was heavy then, but it was like, I mean, I was 13, I think, when I started the first band. It was a band called Morphine, and it was total like, metal,
Yeah.
like sort of Metallica, Megadeth, all that stuff. You know what I mean? We didn't have like any sort of like vision. We just wanted to like be in a metal band that sounded exactly like those bands. And I do remember we used to like argue over the set list about like we used like the dream was to like one day get support with supporting Megadeth, and we used to like argue amongst ourselves what the set list was going to be for the support slot with Megadeth. I feel like serious arguments. Like, are you fucking mental? Cruel Existence first? Are you joking? It has to be Psycho House.
Amazing.
But then I
So,
do remember, like, about the fifth or sixth song, I wrote this song. It's called Red, I think, and it was like an instrumental, and it was a bit weirder and a bit slower and a bit heavier. And I remember thinking, oh shit, this is something. it was like the closest we got to like this could be some way towards creating our own little sound, you know. And then, you know, the band fell apart after about a year or so. And but then we had a bunch of mates who were all starting bands. And what coincided with that was that there's this really cool old guy in the town called Franny Lagan, who had started like a gig night at this pub called the Nag's Head in the old town, like the old village in Corby. And we'd had nothing until that point, and all of a sudden we were like, there was bands playing
Wow.
every weekend, every second weekend, and they had like an alternative disco and stuff. And by that point we were like 15, 16. And then things really start happening when you're starting seeing like traveling bands, like not massive bands, but you know, bands doing the circuit, the toilet circuit in the UK, coming into
Yeah.
Corby and hearing different things. And yeah, that really then that's when I realized that I really want to whatever I do in life, I want to be in a band, you know. And
So let's get to Speedhorn,
yeah,
right? So for like how first of all, when did Speedhorn start long after your first band, or
yeah, like me
you
and
had more bands before Speedhorn? You had
yeah,
quite
after that band Morphine, I had another band called Sect, which was a bit more sort of grungy, a bit more kind of early Smashing Pumpkinsy.
were you listening to this kind of stuff around then? Like,
Yeah, because that's when like Nirvana came along as well.
right,
And
right,
my friend Leon, who played bass in this band Sect, he asked me to join when Morphine finished, kind of thing. And Leon was like the first kind of friend that really started like influencing me as far as
yeah,
music goes.
yeah,
Because he was like, he got massively into Nirvana, but then he kind of like he dug into everything, all their
right,
influences. So Leon was like buying like the Sub Pop compilation records, and then he
right,
like, introduced me to like Melvins and
yeah.
Black Flag and Stephen Jesse Bernstein and all sorts, you know, like you know the Wipers, things like that. So and then Leon was also like, you know, when he had Sect, he was also like, you know, booking gigs himself, and he was did a little fanzine for the band and stuff that were given out with demo tapes and stuff. So he was like really on it, kind of thing, and really into the sort of DIY aspect of it. So he
Right.
informed a lot of my like, you know, thinking as far as playing in bands goes. And
So
it's
do you
really cool
reckon
because
kind of
he's still one of my best mates to these days. You know, what I mean, I'm going to see him
that,
next week when I go to London.
that do you reckon is kind of when you almost kind of got a little bit politicized through?
Yeah, definitely. That's when
Yeah.
I realized that being in a band isn't just being in a band and playing music. Because when you start playing a band when you're 13, the main thing you want to do is just be cool and accepted at school and show the other kids at school that you're cool as well. And
What, you don't want to do that nowadays, Gaz. You don't want to be cool and accepted and show the other kids.
maybe
Yeah,
try,
sorry, continue.
try to suppress that at least. But that's the kind of what it was, you know. And then when Leon came along, we started playing in Sect, and the band was about something so much more, you know what I mean? And then it was like almost
Yeah,
it's becoming like a lifestyle choice. And
right.
you start getting to the territory and where you don't want other people to understand it. Like, oh, we're fucking too cool for it. We're like really cool DIY
Yeah,
kids, and you know. But it was definitely then that it became super serious for me. And that band actually did start playing gigs. Leon was booking gigs, and we got like a gig down in London at the George Robey Club, and is it Tottenham
yeah.
one?
I played the George Roby. Yeah,
Yeah, you know, and so we actually were starting to do things. So I was like a little bit heartbroken when, because this was about 16, and then like they went to uni after A levels,
right.
and that was like the kind of natural end to that band because they all left Corby, of course, and I was left with that feeling of being stuck in Corby. And I totally like I did pretty well at school until like I got to like 6 months before my GCSEs. I was doing my mock exams and they all went really well. And then I just like I got so obsessed with music that I kind of just, you know, I was like
Oh,
upset to the point where like I kind of fucked school. I didn't do a minute's revision for any of my exams and flunked it totally kind of thing. And somehow scrounged my way into sixth form but didn't want to be there. Because by that point all I wanted to do was play in a band. So when like Sex split up because all my best friends went to uni to Nottingham, most of them, I was like just left my own and walked down the dumps. But Frank, who sang in Speed On, played drums in Sect.
all
Frank
right.
was like this little wizard kid who was like he was like this little prodigy kid who was like amazing guitarist when he was like 14. He used to like practice down the community center in Corby where we could practice for free. So I met him there, and then he was in this incredible drummer. So me and Frank had that band and then another band after that called Soul Cellar, which he also played drums in. And that morphed into Speed On eventually with another
Oh
band.
yeah, blender in the background. There's a blender going off.
All right.
This is keeping with the DIY theme.
Well, yeah, keep them at
There's,
the amp sat.
there's no AI voices or
I'm
editing
sat
shit
on the
out.
back in the countryside here.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes, I
punk
can
rocker.
continue.
No, yeah, so I think we were like I was maybe 19. It was 98 when we started. No, probably just come to 20 when we started Speed On. And that band we had before Soul Cell had also like played down in London one or two times. And we played this like it's a Metal Hammer or Terrorizer magazine all day gig with Soul Cellar.
Wow.
And it was the like, My Dying Bride and Cathedral
The
and some
biggish
bands like
bands,
that.
eh?
But Iron Monkey were playing that show.
Oh, right.
That alongside seeing Hard to Swallow play their first ever show in Corby, funnily enough,
Yeah.
because our friend Roddy, who had moved to Nottingham and still had a connection to Corby, was booking bands at this other place in Corby. He booked Hard to Swallow, and that blew me away completely, especially like
Yeah.
the two singers thing and
Yeah.
Kev, our dear friend, and Goy must have been in the band then,
Yeah.
and all those fucking legends, and they were insane, and they were so fucking heavy and so messy. I'd never heard music like Hard to Swallow
Yeah.
before, and then when I seen Iron Monkey at this show we were playing with Soul Cellar, I'd kind of heard music like that before, but not done in that way and not done with that aggression or attitude, and they were so out of place at this sort of more technical metal do,
Yeah.
and that right there and then I knew that I wanted to do a band that sounded like that, And from there got into like I Hate God and Buzzoven and
And so
Electric
that
Acid.
really influenced the speed on sound, right?
Yeah, it influenced the sound and it also influenced like the attitude as well because it was again that whole feeling of like didn't get feel for 1 second I Monkey were there trying to impress people or be the biggest band in the world, and that's through Leon and Sect and all that, I was already so ingrained in you don't do music like I'm a rock star. I hated and I still hate the rock star concept and rock and roll and booze and drugs and sex and blah blah. Fuck all that. It's music, playing music's far more important than that for me. And it was never about like wanting to be have music as a job or anything like that. It was like my passion in life and what gives your life meaning in a way. But you know,
So I reckon we probably should get onto Speed On,
mm,
really do the kind of potted summary of Speed On because I know
yeah.
that's a week of recordings in its own right.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
maybe say a little bit about Speed On, you know, how that progressed, maybe just say a little
Mm,
bit about some of the albums you did,
yeah.
where you went doing that, how much of your life that took up, and then probably say a little bit about how that corresponded with you getting to Sweden
Mm.
and how one thing
That
ends
makes
and
things
another thing
hard.
begins.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Speed On like took off quite unexpectedly. We started totally with attitudes like, just being a Corby band who nobody was going to understand. I think our first gig was like 4 or 5 songs and almost like an hour long. And the last 20 minutes was just feedback and rolling around on the floor and hoping people would leave kind of thing. Because we were like obviously obsessed with being like, oh, we knew better than everyone else and nobody's going to
Confrontational,
understand
in
us.
your face.
Yeah,
You won't
exactly.
understand me. You just don't understand me.
And it was, and like our big ambition was to get a support gig with Iron Monkey. That was it, So it kind of gone from Morphine arguing over the Megadeth set list support slot. That was like, all we want to do with this band. The big dream was to play with Iron Monkey, which I think we did like on the third or fourth show or something.
Amazing.
And that's also because, music like it is when you start playing music and, you get one connection that leads to another, leads to another. And Roddy, who I mentioned, was best friends with this guy Dave Bianchi, who as well lived in Nottingham, and he'd got involved in the music scene, music industry, and we got involved with him, and he took us on. He kind of got free reign. He was working for like a record label that was like doing R&B, like Mark Morrison and Gabrielle and things like that, down in London. But he kind of, when he kind of discovered us and heard us, he got like free reign to run a little like subsidiary to that, just doing heavier stuff. And so And that was it, really. It took off, like, and what they did for us, which was the best thing they could have did for us, was that instead of like searching for like a big record label and giving us a big contract and make an album and blah 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 and do this, they just like put us out on the road, you know. So we had the luxury of them funding us, at least giving us the money. I guess you could call it tour support, but they give us tour support to do like the toilet circuit in the UK, round and round and round, where we would build it up from the ground. So they give us money to like rent like the cheapest van we could find, which meant like, you know, most of the time sitting in the back of a transit van with no windows in the dark and sitting on amps and just going from gig to gig to gig. And they helped us book shows and stuff. And then I guess money for petrol as well, because we weren't getting paid much from the gigs then. But the rest we kind of had to just work out ourselves, like where we'd sleep, where we'd get food, because there's no one giving us food, where we'd get drink or booze. And so we just did that for like the first year or two, just, you know,
Yeah.
going round and round and round, playing like Tuesday night, Boston, Wednesday night, Canterbury, Thursday night, you know, Hastings, whatever. And starting off by playing to like 5, 10 people a night. And then just, but we always had the attitude of play as, and that was for me, like very influenced by the whole Black Flag, Chuck
Hmm.
Dukowski thing of it doesn't matter who or how many people come to the show. You owe whoever comes to the show a fucking gig kind of thing and play your heart out.
An interesting
We
thing though
did.
about that, Gaz, is like you said, you're stuck in this small little cramped van. You sleep wherever you can,
Yeah.
and that's physically quite demanding. And people of a certain age and a certain physical capabilities can endure that. And that's something I guess we'll think a little bit more about later
Yeah.
on. But that's a
Yeah.
really important point to think, right? You have that
Exactly.
you have that physical ability. You can endure that sort of stuff. It's
Yeah.
not easy, is it? Being stuck in a little van and being on the
No.
road at
The
all,
thought of it now would be like horrifying for more than 2 or 3 days, you know what I mean? But
especially
then
with our injuries.
yeah, exactly. Occurred over. But yeah, it was, you know, I mean, I was 20, 21 then, and it meant that life got me out of working in factories and warehouses in Corby, you know.
Which is
And
another kind of toll on your body,
yeah,
right?
God, yeah, fucking hell. No kidding. I mean, you know, I remember like working in like this sandwich factory in Corby, and my mate's dad worked there, and he'd been working like permanent nights for about 15 years or something. And thinking, the fuck is that what my future is? You know, that really hit me then. It's like my friends have gone to uni. I'm dreaming about playing music, have no education pretty much. What the fuck am I gonna do? Kind of thing. Is this my life now? So going like 5, 6 days a week, playing shows with Speedhorn, sleeping in the van, sleeping in a tent by the in the country lane somewhere. It was just magic, you know what I mean? Just getting to do that. And I still had like my base at home. My parents supported me, you know, they were wonderful. And so then we were just like nomads really. And we did that for a couple of years, just playing all the time and seeing the crowds go from like 10 people. Well, like I say, you know, we'd fucking play our asses off and give it full throttle. Didn't matter how many people were there. And then it was 40 people. And then you go back, you know, 6 months later and it's 80 people, 90 people. And then you start doing support. So we did like a lot of support slots as well. But it built up and it went all the way to you know, we made a couple of demo tapes, sold like, you know, I think something like 1,000 copies of those tapes, which is this is like 99. So this is
Hmm.
before like, you know, even MySpace and things like that. So it was still the era of selling a lot of tapes and stuff.
Hmm.
But then they went on to like recorded albums and, you know, we peaked somewhere in 2002, 2003. I think we headlined or joint headlined Astoria and it was sold out and
Who was that with?
uh
Come on.
well this is another part
Come
of the
on. Just
Speedo
tell us.
story. We played like a lot of fucking
Just
new
say.
what the hell were they called? El Nino, I think.
Oh,
Some American band. El Nino is awful.
Oh, okay. I don't know anyway,
But
so
we
that's fine.
played with like, a lot of bands like that, you know, and like we so that took us far away from our whole ideal of playing with Iron Monkey and I Hate God and those bands to playing a
You
lot.
did, didn't you do quite a bit of Biohazard and
We did. I mean, that's the thing. We played with because we were like so up for doing anything. We played with everyone, and you know, it sounds arrogant now to say it, but I mean, we did feel at times we got bunched in with a lot of that new metal stuff because that was happening then, and we were in like Kerrang and stuff like that, a lot, you know, the big magazines. So we were getting like bunched on with like a lot of those touring, and we were like, well, it's a gig. we're playing to people, and most of these bands are shit. And we don't, it's like we come off sounding pretty good compared to and heavy, compared to a lot of those bands. So yeah, so we end up doing a lot of that. And but yeah, when we got to that point, that was like, we'd been hitting it very, very hard for about 5 years, which, like you say, takes a toll on you physically because there's a lot of drinking involved and a lot of other stuff. And it's demanding and it wears you out. And then I'd met my then girlfriend, my now wife, Jenny, in Sweden when we've been touring. So I'd kind of like half moved to Sweden and the band kind of was pretty burnt out, you know what I mean? It was quite
This is
destructive.
when it sort of went on the decline for you, really.
Yeah, because I remember like I remember having a conversation with Dave, who was managing us still, and I said, look, we need a break. I need like 6 months off. I want to just relax. I need to chill out. I don't want to be in Sweden for a bit and just otherwise we're not going to last. You know what I mean? Like people are starting to drop off the band already, and we were just worn out of constantly touring and releasing records. And Dave said, well, I understand you. It goes, but the reality is, Gaz, the way things are with this industry, you walk away for 6 months. When you come back, the world's moved on. It's
How old are you then, Gaz?
probably 23,
Still
24.
young as heck.
Yeah, no, and I felt old then. I felt old and worn out, which was fucked. And I was like the older one in the band, but like by a year, but I was like carrying a lot of that weight of being like a bit like the dad in the band.
Yeah.
But I was like, by that point, it had almost become a bit like a job. When you're doing like 150, 160 gigs a year, there were times when we were like, where am I today? And then going on stage and thinking about other things. My head was zoning out and thinking about other things while we were playing a gig. And the gig was like going on autopilot, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was thinking, this ain't right. This isn't what I wanted to do music for. So I was like, well, yeah, we need it. If we don't take a break, we're going to break up anyway. So, we're going to implode. So we did. And Dave was totally right. It had moved on. Trends, that's when you're in a trend, that's the way it goes. And then like Frank left, and one of my oldest mates had been in like three bands with him. And uh, Kevin, like, sung and I came for Dave. Um,
I think we lost the connection's got a bit bad, Gaz. The connection's gone a little bit, I think.
yeah. Back,
Oh, oh yeah, no, it's gone. You've gone in the red.
I'm in the red.
You're
Okay.
in the red, mate. It looks like, yes, it says your signal's in the red.
Yeah. I can hear you fine though, but
No, you're fine now. So
yeah.
you're saying about like go back to the bit where you said like to give up 6 months, Frank leaving the band.
Yeah. And Kev joined. And like Kev was one of my really good friends at the time and still one of my like musical heroes from Hard to Swallow and that.
Because I guess I mean because of course as well there's a whole story with Kev that we hope to cover
Yeah,
in another conversation.
exactly.
But
But
Kev comes from the full on. I mean, Kev's been and done loads of stuff,
yeah,
but he's a
Kev
full
came from
on.
that world that I desperately wanted to be in, basically. And he, like I say, I was 24 and worn out, but I'm still just 24 years old and very impressionable still and open to new influences and new things. And Kev, introduced me to all that stuff, which introduced Hard to Swallow, like Rorschach and,
Yeah,
Swing Kids, Citizens Arrest, and, all that great American stuff. And also the DIY ethic
yeah,
for
totally.
real kind of thing, you know what
Yeah,
I mean? He
yeah,
was like our fucking DIY spirit guide or something.
yeah.
And it became really fun for me after that because we did like a massive tour of states with Kev, and then we toured Europe a bunch of times, and we went back to like real DIY them. We bought our own van and we just toured in this van. We built makeshift, like Gordon, the drummer's brother, built makeshift beds in this van, this old school bus, and we just like we could play anywhere for really cheap because we had like a hotel. We live in like our own little on the road hotel kind of thing. It's like,
That independence, that autonomy again, right?
yeah, and it was amazing. And they were to me the best years, despite all like traveling all over the world to speed on and Japan and all that stuff. America, it was like they were for me the most harmonious and most fun times of speed on. That and that first little period where things are starting to take off. That buzz when you're in a band and it's in real, you notice that things are starting to, there's a bit of a buzz going on.
Yeah.
That's a really fun period.
Yeah.
And when you get to that destination, it's not as fun as you think it's going to be. But
Yeah.
the way there is really fun. It's just that when there's that little buzz and it, you know, it totally kind of dominates your thinking and you've got ideas and it's all about, you're just writing loads and loads of songs and all that. So really, but yeah, when we were touring really DIY, especially in Europe a lot with Kev, they were amazing times.
Do you reckon that's what really switched you on to that
Yeah,
more?
definitely. That's what kind of I think it started a lot with Leon, and
Yeah.
then like so even like so Roddy and Dave who were in the industry but come from that area as well. And then but then Kev kind of was really like pushed it over into that next thing. You know what I mean? It become
Is your the next period of Gaz, the next Gaz
yeah
stage? But but if I remember right, didn't even like the songwriting change a little bit then as well?
yeah it did.
I swear I remember listening to some stuff you recorded. Thought this sounds quite different.
Yeah, it went like really sort of discordanty, and I'd
Yeah,
really got into like swing kids and
I
things
had a
like
bit of As Factor 44, As Factor 4, whatever
that's
it's
like the
called, isn't
four.
it?
Yeah, Yeah,
And
exactly.
stuff like that in it.
Yeah. So, and and that was funny because then as soon as we wrote that and finished writing and recording that record, I was like so buzzed about it, the whole process of writing that record. But I was living in Sweden at the time, so it was a bit of a chore as well because flying back, I was working like in a bar, like a music venue in Stockholm in
Yeah,
the
I
bartender,
remember.
seeing loads of bands. That was a great place to work when you're that age. Everyone that worked there played in bands, kind of thing. It was like the most happening sort of music venue in Stockholm at the time.
What was
And
it called? What was that place
debate
called? That
debate
was a place. Yeah,
yeah, it was amazing. I must have seen about 500 bands working behind the bar or something in those 5 years. But anyway, yeah, but then I was having to like obviously leaving work to go on tour is one thing because you're normally making at least covering your costs when you go away for 3 weeks. But going back to rehearsing Corby for 2 weeks and right was a hard slog and no money involved. And so as soon as that record was done, I was kind of delighted with it. It was a record I'd wanted to make for a long time with Speed On. And then I almost knew that as soon as it was done, that was it. The band was done.
yeah.
And then also like me and Kev, well, we did like a Scandinavian tour with Victims and did like a lot of punk venues, DIY venues, and Victims were like a three piece then, like Little Andy had left the band and it was just Johan, Jon and Andy. And they fucking blew us away every night. And we were stood there as like DIY space in Gothenburg watching Victims. And me and Kev said, let's fuck Speed On off. It's like, I want to do let's do something like this instead. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's when we decided we stood watching Victims and decided to call it a day. And we did.
And how old were you then?
I would have been 27, 28. I was 28 when the band finally finished because we decided to finish the band and then we did like a last UK tour, last European tour, and then we finished in Japan, which was amazing. And then, yeah, I was then out of a band for the first time since I was 13 years old. That was the first, I didn't have a band on the go between 13 and 28.
Yeah.
But Johan, the singer and Victims bass player, was working at the bass or as a sound engineer. And I'd got to know him a bit. That's why we ended up touring with him. And yeah, then I blagged my way into them. And I was like, I think I was without a band for about a month or something. We came over from Japan in like the November, and I started rehearsing my Victims in January, I think. And I was saying to Jen, my wife, Jen plays in a bunch of bands as well, so that's kind of how we met each other through music. And I was saying that I need a break, and didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't really want to work in bars the rest of my life, but I'd been talking to Bianchi a bit about maybe working with him in the industry and based in the UK, but I didn't want to really. I wasn't really that interested in working in music. I just wanted to play. And then I started writing my Victims because they wanted to try out like a second guitarist. They'd never had two guitar players, and it sounded pretty good. And then they said to me like after like the third or fourth practice, we've got a tour in the States. East Coast tour of the States, 3 weeks in May. Do you want to come? I was like, yeah, fucking right, I do.
Out
And
of,
it was like, that was a period of Victims where they probably just before the period of me, the first 3 or 4 years of me in a band was when they probably toured the most. We were going to the States maybe once a year and Europe, and they were doing quite a lot then. But we were working then, you know, I mean, we were all like working day jobs, and but it
So
was
so working full time. Well,
yeah, I mean, most of us had like jobs
well,
where we could like go on leave and tour and then come back. You know, I was like working at that bar, and then I started like running a bar, like bar manager at this other little music sort of style place, which had these cool owners that were in bands in the 80s and were into me going away as well. But you know, it was like gig economy job. It was like paid by the hour. I didn't have a salary. I didn't have a salary until I was, I think, 39, 40.
wow.
I'd always done bands like, you know, whatever job I had, the band was like, it had to complement.
Fans goes first.
The band goes first. And
How
then
was, can I ask, how was Jen about that at that time? I guess she was coming from bands herself. She was probably early on
she,
quite supportive,
she
or
was, but when I started like touring a lot with victims again, I mean, you know, obviously things change when you like when I moved to Sweden full time, you got a flat, we got a flat together and I had to start paying for the rent and things like that, you know, and gone from studying, she took time out of work to study for a while, like study computers and stuff, and then went back to full-time work. Whereas I was still like, you know, it's like fucking faffing around playing in DIY bands and playing in two or three bands as well. I mean, Victims was my main thing, but you know, even bands like Diagnosis Bastard and had this other band called Battle of Santiago, which we were doing things with, and because I was just I've always been fucking obsessed with music, and
yeah.
so it wasn't really until we had a kid, you know, Polly, our daughter, was born when I was 35, I think. But it kind of worked out all right because it kind of coincided with everybody in Victims kind of getting kids at the same time. And we kind of naturally followed each other into that next stage of life where, you know, it's other things just do start, you know, I wasn't just that 20-year-old obsessed kid who was just like constantly writing, I'm always constantly writing songs in my head, but mapping out the plan for, okay, we're going to get these gigs sorted and this and write, you know, release this 7 inch, whatever. Then you got a kid all of a sudden, and that's an amazing experience as well. And, you know, and then also, then after that, when we had a kid, it wasn't playing in bands really that made me want to stop working in bars. It was having a kid because I was running a bar and I was kind of working day and night. You know, I was working in the bar a couple of nights a week. I was running the place during the daytime, and that just wasn't sustainable. And I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to be like a 40-year-old guy, you know, with a kid and working nights in a bar. And so then I actually went back to study and I had to get like my A levels done in Sweden, you know, in Swedish, and then went to uni and studied psychology, sociology for 3 years and got into.
All in the language that you'd learnt as well, which is pretty
Mm,
impressive. But
yeah, yeah,
I guess around then though, like so, like all of you, like right, and like pretty much most of the band, with exception, one particular exception, had kids, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
and so everyone felt probably like having to slow things down a little bit and
Yeah,
just
and it kind of coincided well because we wanted to slow things down a little bit because our lives were changing a bit, but also we had all been doing it for about 20 years,
yeah,
touring a lot and playing a lot. I mean, and done the whole gambit of, you know, starting bands when you're a teenager to booking gigs and then booking gigs for other bands. You know, I mean, Andy and Johan did that a lot as well. And Johan had toured everywhere with, you know, Nasum and Sayadina and Victims and all the, you know, A Curse, all loads of bands. And so we were also getting to the point where we'd done it a fucking lot for 20 years. And it was the first time in my life which I actually had a job, which I really liked as well, and really had a lot of meaning and
yeah,
identity in as well. It's like being a
outside of the
social work.
band,
Yeah, it's been a social
outside
work,
of music.
sort of like counseling people in homelessness and substance abuse was like, then that felt to me as cool as playing in bands. You know, and it's like the
It
fact
kind of
that,
connects the ethics to some
well,
extent,
yeah,
values, right?
I guess so, yeah. But yeah, so you know, but like it's but you know, as much as anything else, also physically and mentally, like we were getting to a point where it's like we didn't want to be like, you know, touring 3 or 4 months a year anymore because as much as we all still love it, it takes its toll physically, you know, sitting in a van
It's
6 hours,
interesting,
7 hours a day, driving yourself and
of
sleeping in
course.
spots and no sleep. And because by those days, you know, like a lot of the partying's kind of fell by the wayside then, and it's
Yeah.
just about playing in a punk band and meeting people and connecting.
There's this kind of sort of different spaces, isn't it? Because when we talk about punk and DIY and hardcore and all that, we all know it's a real diverse thing, right? You can
Yeah,
be people who are on no labels, self-release stuff, like, or they're just putting, I don't know, MP3s out on Bandcamp. And then there's
yeah,
people with quite big labels, you know,
yeah,
they've got labels doing all their releases, probably paying stuff. And then some are on even bigger
yeah.
labels. And I think there's a point, wasn't there, where Victims were a pretty big band, weren't they, really? I mean, you had like Death Wish was, well, did Death Wish put a record out for you or?
Death Wish put some version of a couple of records out in the States
So I
alongside
imagine when you
Tank
were,
Crimes. Yeah,
that's, yeah, I remember Tango. So I imagine then when you were touring,
yeah,
because you're quite a big band, you probably
yeah.
kind of doorways opened a little bit easier for you, maybe.
Well,
Or
it
do you think
was. I
not?
mean, totally. I mean, like when I was sort of, mid-30s, doing Victims, had a family, studying, but then like, Victims was like then got to the point where it was like a luxury hobby. I mean, we could like
Yeah,
say, let's go and play that weekend works, that weekend in May works, that weekend in July works. Let's go and let's go to Spain or let's go to fucking East Europe or something. And you could do that was amazing. And then we could tour the States still, and I mean, you are in a luxurious position when you don't really have to, chase gigs that you get festivals emailing you saying, do you want to come and play this festival in Poland or in France or, in Philadelphia or something? And yeah, let's book a tour around that. Then that'll be awesome kind of thing. And we can do like 8 days. It's great. You know what I mean? And
and
so
with
that, I mean,
that,
that was an amazing position to be in. And then Victims had, I was coming into it a bit later on. Like when I joined Victims, they'd been around for like 10 years already.
yeah,
And it makes you realize, I mean, they put all that legwork in over 20 years. So it felt like free to me, but it wasn't free to them. They'd put in all that groundwork, which I
yeah,
did the speed on and
yeah.
bands before that. So, and it's like that now with Alarm. I mean, I have thoughts around that sometimes where you start a new band, but it's like three of us from Victims. And of course, you get a lot of, I mean, we have like 20 plus years of connections with Victims and made friends all over the world, which is to me always been like the most important thing about playing in a punk band is making friends. Because that's what it's not about being a career or making money. It's about making it, enriching in your life and broadening your fucking horizons and meeting friends all over the world. Like people like you and everyone. And so
I
that
was gonna,
was like,
I just
a
can I just
luxury.
get to wind back a bit though, just
Yeah.
quickly, because I think it's something that's quite important in a way. Well, thinking about that, because like they say, all the guys and Victims, they laid all the groundwork, they did everything before, and they had that period of kind of like what you'd say, kind of luxury, as much as you can have luxury in a hardcore
Yeah.
band,
Yeah.
but we
Yeah.
have all the networks, right? And
Yeah.
people asking you to play.
Yeah.
With that, I guess, and this is a real practical thing, is like also you're probably getting okay places to sleep at, right?
Yeah.
Not all the time, obviously, but I imagine them they're going to they're going to have more resources available to find you
Yeah.
places to sleep, right?
Yeah.
And I think the reason why I bring that up because this is part of what we're talking about. As you get older,
Mm.
having a good place to sleep if you got like I know it sounds really like, but let's go there.
Now I
Back
get into the
issues,
old
neck
stuff.
issues, body
Yeah.
issues,
Yeah.
etc. Physical
Yeah.
things that come about and challenges, them things become really, really important. And it's quite
Yeah.
hard within
Absolutely.
a DIY scene to
Yeah.
negotiate that without trying to come across as being privileged or demanding. So I
Exactly. Or
sort of,
just sounding like an old fucking
well, this
moaning
is truth
twat,
as well, right? We all get
which you
older.
hate when you're like a 20-year-old punk, like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, no. But I mean, it does, like you say, I mean, we had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, you and me, about different ailments. I've been like suffering with like a trapped nerve, which I think probably has come from years of not really looking after yourself properly. And Henrik, the singer in Alarm's got fucked back from all his years of skateboarding and things, and
yeah,
it takes its toll. And but I've always had this very romantic idea of an adventure. I love the adventure of DIY touring. But then the choice then becomes, well, but I can't do that for more than 3 or 4 nights in a
yeah,
row. I mean, and if we're
yeah.
going to do like a 10-day tour, which is bordering on the edge anyway, because I don't know if I can even do 10 days of just sitting in a van, 6, 7 hours a day, driving ourselves in the van. anymore, you know what I mean, and sleeping little and stuff. So it's just a matter of fact that we're too knackered for that. You know what I mean? It's like we've done all that for so many years. I've been playing in bands for 30 plus years now, you know, and so I mean it's either you do it DIY and do squats and sleep there for 2 or 3 nights, like we just did with Alarm and in Shastra, your band, or if it's a bit of a longer tour, then I mean a longer tour for us these days probably would entail like touring with another band anyway, where there maybe is like hostels involved or something, you know. And it's not
Yeah.
like we like need a nice hotel. Just
Somewhere to sleep.
what makes the massive difference when you're playing, staying at someone else's place or staying in a squat is that you don't yourself get to choose when you go to bed
Yeah.
or go to sleep.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a hostel, then if some guys want to stay out all night partying, whatever, you still have that choice. All right, now it's time for me to go and lie down in a quiet place and sleep, you know.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we have had time. I mean, you know, there's nothing more horrifying than when you know you're staying two bands staying in the promoter's flat. I remember we played with like Diagnosis Bastard and Pyramido from Sweden at some place in Prague, and it was a fucking great gig. It was such a buzz. It was a really cool. It was like this kind of cool cafe place in this park in the middle of Prague, and everyone that was working there was like sort of it was like a back to society kind of scheme where everyone was working with like young offenders being like reintroduced in society, and they were like working the bar and working the doors. This is amazing. And then the promoter guy who booked us, who I'm still friends with today, I still stay in touch with. It's like with Mira. He was lovely, but he like offered. He's like, you can stay at my place. Like I can put both bands. There's plenty of room. I was like, oh, amazing, awesome. So we got back, and then he had a roommate who hadn't been at the gig, who was you know, something odd with him. And he was just sat really quietly, like smoking joints to himself one night. And then as we're about to all like crash out in this little room, like 13 people, whatever it is, to like, you know, one room. And then he just starts playing this really loud fucking industrial music. He's like, oh, fuck. Oh, I was like, oh my God, you know. And it's like, there's times like when you wake up, you think, I've got a kid at home. He's like,
Yeah.
I've got a baby at home. I'm getting too old for this. You know, it's like, I do need more than 3 hours sleep a night.
Do you
That's just
remember when
like,
we played one of the places in País Basco in the Basque country? Sending a message to someone to tell the DJ to turn the music down.
look at that, me.
Not saying any names.
Can you please tell the DJ to turn the music? But it's like fucking hell. There's like five crusty punks on their own in a bar, and they're playing the record through the fucking PA, and you're
Who are
sleeping
you?
above the
Wait,
PA.
who are you to judge, mate?
Oh
Showing
no.
your age there, mate.
Remember when Diagnosis played Gothenburg one time, and the little band room they had, like where the beds was literally above, you went up like a loft above the stage, and some fucker had put Bad Reputation by Thin Lizzy on repeat on CD through the PA. And I remember like I had like Rosalie was like creeping into my fucking dreams. And I remember waking up and like begging Kev to go down and tell him to turn it off. And Kev just like lying there awake, looking horrified. It was so loud. It was insane. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah.
you know,
Let's change the I guess
yeah.
maybe something to mention quickly or talk about quickly. Do you do anything to try and keep yourself more physically capable to endure playing in a band nowadays or not?
I mean, not really. I mean, I lived for a long time off. Well,
You go to the gym, don't you?
yeah, I mean, I have a little bit. I go in periods of doing absolute fuck all, and then I'll go mad for like a few weeks, and then I'll calm it down again. But I mean, I didn't do anything for years and years and years because I rested on my laurels of I played football, I think, every day of my life until I was about 16. So I was like, oh, yeah, I've got this fucking ground metabolism in me. You know, like I'm good. I've conditioned my body in youth to like get me all the way through fucking middle age, and then all of a sudden, after years of playing in bands and like running a bar and taking deliveries with like really heavy like beer kegs and stuff down into a cellar, stressed for time and all that, started getting problems with my lower back and going to like a chiropractor. And the first thing they ask you is if you train, and you're like, nah, not really. What, nothing? Nah. And he's like, well, you're 36, maybe it's time to start with that, you know. So yeah, so I got into a bit of running and a bit of swimming and a bit of training, but I've never been one for like gym and stuff, you know. But I mean, I've had to force myself to do it a bit. But I mean, I don't do much. I'm a total like totally go in periods. I'll go on a run. I'll go on my first run for like 3 months and then I'll run like, 10 kilometers and be totally psyched that I'm gonna do this every day. That's it now. Run every day. And then I'll like 7 days later, it's like, oh yeah, no. I ain't got time today, you know. And then you miss one day, then it's like, it just kind of falls away so quickly. But I mean, now like this last little period of this last year, I've had like a trapped nerve in my neck like 3 or 4 times this last year, and I'm sitting a little bit now more at work than I used to. I used to be like a case worker out in the field, working with home visits, going home to people. Now I'm like some sort of team leader and working at the office a lot more. And you know, so yeah, I've got like a referral now to like a physiotherapist, and
You got to start doing a bit more, mate.
yeah, and like literally the first fucking time in my life in April this year, we played a festival in Poland with Alarm, and the first gig I've probably played, I don't know, maybe over 1,000 shows or something, and it was the first time ever I've had to go on stage and think I can't fucking head like move your head around like I do and throw yourself around because I was just this like somewhere along. Well, I guess probably when I got into like Swing Kids and Hard to Swallow, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna fucking start throwing myself around on stage and all that. But it takes over, and it's like I do have that energy for it, so it does. Don't want to sound like a fucking wanker, but I mean, it does sort of take over. You go on
Yeah,
stage and blast out for 20 minutes, and it does take over. So
yeah,
then I actually had to like restrain myself and hold myself back, and it kind of sucked because it felt like I'm not really 100% into this gig like I normally am. But I
yeah,
think that's just like because you're just not used to thinking that way, and
yeah.
like not going mad and fucking headbutt. But then it was like it was kind of cool because it was the first time I was like I could actually see the crowd a bit, and there was like a little circle pit going on for a while. I was like, that's nice.
Oh, that's nice. The kids are having a great time. Oh, that's nice, isn't it? I mean,
That
that's
was
that's the next
But it's
question.
this new thing for me having to like hold yourself back a bit, and it's like, well, yeah, but otherwise we're going to play this like 20-minute show, which is going to be great fun. And I'm going to go mad, and then I'm going to suffer for like fucking 6 weeks.
No, that's
Where you
true.
can't sleep on any sort of positions not comfortable to sleep on. It's like fucking shoulders all gone out. It's like sucks.
I I know it well.
Then I see Rick putting on his little fucking corset thing. It's all his skateboard injuries, and Andy with his fucking back stress. Like, fuck me, we're old. But that's
I,
just
I know the feeling well. So when did you, or maybe you never did, but was there a point when you started to go to shows and play to shows and start to think, wait a minute, I'm getting older than a lot of these people here.
yeah, but only just recently, shamefully
Yeah,
enough, because it probably should have happened a long time ago. But I think. I think what makes it noticeable is when you see like the next new wave of local kids and crew coming through and booking shows kind of thing.
yeah,
Because like we were doing that ourselves
yeah,
when we were 20 and that. And then, you know, then I played in the band Diagnosis Bastard with Lucas, who plays in Vidro and that now. And he was like the youngster in the band, but he was into like he was like the energy and booking thing. So we were still like involved in that through him and feeding off his energy. And there was like, the next sort of crew which I really took notice of booking shows in Stockholm, and that was like the Axe Rash crew, like Hilda and
yeah,
Leo and
yeah.
Agnes and all those guys, like the clueless punk crowd. But they're like a generation younger than us, but not generations, plural. You know what I mean? They were like
Hmm.
maybe 10 years, 12 years younger than us. So there was still like that connection in that sense. But now it's starting to get to the point where it's the generation after them, like Hilda and Leo and those guys are becoming they're getting to their next stage now, and there's a younger crew again coming through, kind of thing. And it's
Yeah,
fucking amazing. It's awesome. I mean, that's what keeps me going and giving me energy is when you see it just replenishing itself, wave after wave after wave, like the next crowd coming through. But when you are a couple of generations removed, you can't not notice that. Yeah, fuck, we are getting older now. You know what I mean? And it's
Do you,
mad when like, when by the end of like our time with victims, there were like kids coming to our shows that were born after their first record was released.
yeah.
It's fucking insane when you think about it.
But do you think in any way, I mean, for you personally, does it ever make you feel a bit awkward or uncomfortable, or or does it ever make you think, oh shit, I'm too old to be here, or not, or
I
is
mean,
it?
it can do in a sense that, but I've always had that faith in punk and DIY that it is. I mean, that's what attracted to me in the first place is that it's accepting you can be who you want. That's what attracted me to punk in the first place when I was a kid, because growing up in a town where you used to get beat up if you had long hair because you didn't look like all the other kids in school. I kind of got away with it a little bit because I also played in the football team, so I was in that middle ground. But I
Yeah.
mean, my mates were getting fucking beat up for because you had long hair and you had a fucking Metallica t-shirt on. And I remember like going to the first time when I was a kid, like when I was 16 and venturing a bit further afield to like go to shows in Nottingham or Leicester or London and getting there and you see all the fucking manner of like people and it's like fuck nobody's beating that guy up because he's wearing a dress, or he's got pink hair or you know that person because the color of their skin or ever you could be who you wanted in those cities. And that's what I loved about punk as well. It's like, there was like no uniform. Everybody was welcome, and as long as you're on board with these set of ideals that everybody's welcome, what I mean? There's no fucking sexism or racism or homophobia. Everybody is welcome. And that kind of tied into a lot of my like upbringing coming from like a working class town where, solidarity. And I always grew up basically like a socialist and believed in everybody's right to exist with each other and, you know, and be who they are and not be shat on for that anyway. Fucking, but yeah, but I mean, I don't know if it's just within yourself, but then all of a sudden, when you're talking to like I mean, when we played Barcelona with you guys now in, when was it? April and May, and talking to this like guy who'd been in like first or second band, like young guy, and he's like, oh man, fuck, you guys are in Victims and stuff. It's like, yeah, oh, fucking legendary. It's like, oh, and it's like, has been slash legendary. I don't know, but I mean, and he was like wearing like an Inferno top, which is like, you'll know how a good friend who sang in that one of Henke's best mates from when they were kids. And he's like, oh, it's my fucking best mates band, and took a photo of him and that. And so what was cool is like this young kid knew all the fucking old bands, Totalitaire and Dysphere and all those bands, knows the whole, he was like fully immersed in the history of it. But I still was acutely aware myself that fuck, we are much older than you. I am much older than you now. You know, and I don't think for one second that maybe he was thinking that, but it does play on my mind, I mean, it's like, and I've always struggled a lot with imposter syndrome anyway. Like, do I fucking belong here? Do I still belong here? Am I still welcome? Do I stand out? Like, and so, I mean, that does like, play on your mind a bit. But in the same time, 2 or 3 weeks before that, I'd just gone and seen like Jesus Lizard playing in Stockholm. And, like David Yow's like 65
Mhm.
and Mac McNeely is, the drummer's like 64 and they played hard as fuck. And Yao
Yeah.
was like crowd surfing in like 2, 3, 4 times during the gig and they were still doing it and banging it out. I want to see like people like Orca, the Orca, the guitarist in Mob 47, still touring the States and playing squats and that. And he's like, banging on 60 now. Or Kev. People like Kev still booking gigs at the Bird's Nest and that and doing it. It's like this
I'm playing shows.
I'm playing shows. Yeah. And it's like, but I mean, one of my favorite images of Kev was coming to London one time and he'd booked a gig at the Bird's Nest for some band and he's like gone off on his Todd to pick up a Marshall cab and like that he's rented for the gig and just wheeling it down the road on his own. And he's like, fucking 50 or something. And it's like amazing. And so I mean, I don't feel like, that in spirit or anything like that, we're kind of outcasts. But I mean, of course you become aware of your age when you see like, and what makes you obviously aware of it as well is seeing these young bands um going out on tour and a lot and playing loads and loads of gigs all the time kind of thing, which is what we used to do kind of thing, and which we can't really
Yeah.
do anymore. I mean, But I mean, then you just have to like accept your place. Like, you know, that's everything has its time and
It's
everyone has its
true.
place. You know what I mean? And that's just
It's true.
that's for them. You know, it's like you know when. Wait a second, I'm just gonna have to answer. Jenny's just texting me here.
No worries.
Uh, uh, yeah, what were we about? Yeah, you know, I mean, it's like because I guess one of the things about being involved with punk is that it is very like, you know, everybody does stuff together kind of thing. So you can also have like thoughts now and again. It's like maybe we should do more, you know, like be involved more at our stage live, like booking and whatever it is, putting bands up to sleep and all that. But then again, you sort of think back to, yeah, but we have done all that as well. It's like it's in its nature that the next wave of next generation, the next wave comes through and takes over that role kind of thing. And we were all involved in booking shows when we were kids and putting bands up and all that
Well,
kind of
I guess it's where you are at in your life course and what
yeah,
you have available. And that's not necessarily to do with age, but it does make a lot of
it could
difference
be
because
absolutely.
you could be young and still not have the resources, time,
No,
or other
that's
things going
true.
on your
Like
life.
yeah, like you say, what's going on in your life at the time? I mean, like absolutely, it could absolutely be the case that you know my daughter's 12 now, growing up fast and getting more independent all the time. Barely notices if I'm gone for a weekend playing shows somewhere. I mean, you know, who knows? By the time she's older, and I'll be just a young 53 then or something, and maybe up for going and sleeping on floors again and booking bands again and touring, you know, squat. Who knows? But yeah, it's like you say, it's about obviously of what how much room you got in your life for other things as well, you know, and
I think the important thing is as well, Gaz, like you said about you brought up from a working class family and having kind of socialist values. I think it's because we can talk about like punk and hardcore as these kind of generic labels, but as we both know, and since we've been involved in this music, there's multiple forms of punk, there's multiple forms of hardcore, there's lots of different views and ideas. I mean, as you see, like growing, like in places like, you know, just have to turn to the US and loads of these kind of like dodgy, well, I'd say politically problematic
yeah,
macho bands and whatnot. So these are all kinds of different kinds of things, aren't they? With all different kinds of
yeah,
views and values. And I guess what continues to make it an important space for you and people like you is the political side of
yeah,
things, values. You know what we think's important, right? It's the
yeah,
and that
and the
can cut across
connectedness,
that
yeah,
cuts across all ages, right? If you
yeah,
you know
absolutely. I've always like been so grateful for like the sort of network and connectedness you have with people through playing just in
yeah
bands in general, really. It doesn't have to be
yeah
just, I mean, any sort of form of subcultural music or any kind of, you know, subcultural art form. Like it's about connecting with people, isn't it? That's
yeah
what it's always been for me anyway. It's about connecting
yeah.
people and making friends, not about making a career or making money, because then you're in the wrong game if that's what your aim is, you know what I mean? And it's
It,
also
it
something
all,
that you can't just turn off either. I mean, I've never been able to turn it off. I'm 47 now, I had to think that. 47, been playing in bands pretty much non-stop since I was 13. And there's been times where I've been thinking maybe I should knock it on the head, or, you know, when you're sat in a van driving again for like the fourth day in a row, 7 hour van journey, and your kids at home think, do I really want to be doing this still? But then I get home and it's just something you just can't like, you know, we're writing new songs now with Alarm, and it dominates now. I think about it all the time. You know,
yeah.
I think about new
It's
song
not
like
just music for you, is it?
no, it's not.
It's everything that
If it
goes with it.
was, if it was, I could just take it purely to just being a leisure thing where I listen to music in my spare time. But music's never been just music for me. That comes from my dad. It's more than that. You know, it's
Yeah.
more important than that. It's formed my life and made my life amazing, really. You know, and
You still trying to keep on top of new stuff? Are you still
as a
new bands?
new band, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not the days anymore as a kid where you're like on mailing lists to certain record labels and getting all the new stuff in and trading with people and all that stuff. But that's changed now anyway, due to like the
Yeah.
digitalized world we live in and all that. But I mean, I still buy a couple of records a month, I would say, at least, a couple of like
Yeah,
vinyl a month. And it's not just hardcore punk anymore. It's a lot of that still. But I mean, I'm older and gone to other things now. I like a lot of jazz as well, and a lot of, well, it's primarily a lot of jazz as well. But I mean, other things as well. But I mean, I still do get a buzz when you hear a new record by a new band that
yeah.
somebody inevitably has put me on to, you know what I mean? And it's like, fuck, that's amazing, I love hearing like, a new band from Athens, Greece who sound just like Totalitaire, but better
Yeah.
than what they can do it themselves now. It's like fucking amazing, you know what I mean? It's like,
It's also though it's not always what I think it's not always so about them even sounding better or whether they sound like an old band or whatever. It's like for each different generation that's
yeah,
playing this music,
yeah,
everyone's hearing it in their own unique
yeah.
situation,
And it's
right?
just the energy still there.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's a part of a whole, and it's not just like you say, it's not just listening to the music, it's the context in which you're,
yeah,
to use a horrible word, consuming or listening or
yeah,
taking it
absolutely.
in. And
Yeah,
I guess that's it. If you keep yourself open to new stuff, you're going to enjoy
yeah,
it. I mean, there's a lot of
exactly.
people, as we know, who go, "Oh yeah, oh, why do I want to listen to this? So and so
Yeah.
did this 20 years ago, 10 times better." Or
Yeah, I mean that's the worst thing for me. It's like it's just totally missing the point of what fucking
yeah,
music is as well.
yeah,
Completely.
it's definitely stuck in their ways.
Yeah. I know. I mean, when people, I mean, fucking punk is dead and all that bullshit, and
I
like,
mean, how long they been saying that for?
oh, fuck off. It's ridiculous. There's so many good new bands. Or there's always, of course, there is. It's just in its nature. I mean, the energy is still there, and it's like when my dad used to say, "Oh, the fucking '80s was a fucking rubbish decade for music." It's like because like his golden era was like '60s and to mid to
Yeah,
late
yeah,
'70s kind of thing. But he's just thinking of Top of the Pops, you know,
yeah, yeah,
what he had on Top of the Pops and New Romantic and stuff, which wasn't his thing. I was like, Dad, this fucking. That's where my journey starts really in the '80s. You know what I mean? There's so much, and it's like you always have to be willing to dig for things, you
yeah.
know. And I don't know if that's like a time and energy thing. Older people always don't have the time and energy to look for new things, and but I mean that's like for me, it's part of the thrill of it is
It's
discovering.
interesting though because like with the return of vinyl and you have like this kind of like a wealthier older consumers that can go out and buy vinyl and do
Yeah,
have the resources to do it. So it's interesting when you think of that. But I also think I don't know what you think about this, but a lot of like listening to this kind of music, whether you call it punk, hardcore, whatever, it's about hearing it live, right?
yeah, absolutely.
And there's stuff that I've heard live that I don't really listen to like in a recorded format. Even
No,
though, like, I know, yeah, this is good when it's live, and I know some
yeah,
stuff like that, and I think that's the, I mean, going back to that whole
yeah,
thing, that's the big part of it, right? Being there, listening to it in that
absolutely.
room,
That's what it was
often
always
through
about, right? Yeah,
shitty X speakers, or
yeah,
like stuff being distorted
exactly.
or blown out. That's a
Yeah,
big part of it.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, remember seeing like Los Crudos playing in Stockholm and like this suburb of Stockholm in this tiny place like Gula Villan. And it was like, it was packed with about 50 people. And it was like, I was buzzing for days afterwards, fucking days. And it's not like I
Yeah,
listen to Los Crudos records every day, I mean, I'd
yeah,
like the
yeah,
band and I like the
yeah,
records a lot, but I mean, it isn't that often that you'll get, I mean, 'cause I've got so many, I've got thousands of fucking records at home. Of course, there's not many records I listen to on repeat. When they come along now and again, it is fun. Like I think like the last Kriegshög record, I've spun that a lot this last year. I fucking love that record, and it was amazing live as well. But primarily, it's always been about like that's where you've
yeah,
seen it the first time, and that's what encapsulated you the first time was the energy coming from the gig. And what I've always loved about punk is that there was n never any difference between the band and the crowd. You
yeah,
know, there was no hierarchy. There's no rock star thing. Like coming back to how I always hate the whole rock star concept. And then when you start playing in bands and start playing in DIY, you also realize that the crowd isn't just the crowd either. Most of the crowd playing bands themselves, or they're doing
yeah,
zines, or they're photoing, or they're booking bands. They've got a little label. They're putting bands up. Everyone's involved.
yeah.
It's like a working collective. It's fucking. I loved it. Do love it. Yeah.
You get friends for life for it, don't you? I mean, there's
Yeah,
people
definitely.
I've known since I was in my teens that I'm still friends with. Okay, so we probably should sort of finish off, but a few things.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I've got about 16% left of my battery now, and I'm sat outside. So
What advice would you give to someone who fears they're getting too old to go to shows or be in a band? What would you say?
Well, just don't ever fucking, for one thing, worry about that because if you're, I mean, people aren't gonna fucking exclude you just for being old. You know what I mean? That's just not the way it is. And I've got absolute true belief in that in the punk scene that that would never be the case, kind of thing. And I mean, isn't like having interests and a passion and a hobby the thing that keeps you young anyway and keeps you energized?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
it's like my dad's a pensioner now. He's 75 and he retired when he was 65. He's been on his own since he pretty much retired because my mum unfortunately died like around their pension era. But his life has been going on and on. And he's so enthused still about his interests and about having a passion. And now when I'm older and I don't do playing in a band 100% anymore, it's not my 100% like, what's the word for it, occupation, but it still gives me energy in the rest of my life. It gives me energy in my job. It gives me energy in my family. I love my job. I love my kid. I love my family. But I wouldn't, I don't know if I'd have that same energy without that energy that gives me, even
yeah,
just on a part-time basis. So
yeah,
like you're never too fucking old to have interests and be passionate about things and do things, to be creative. Fuck, I mean, some of the most amazing artists that have ever lived have gone into old age and been productive into old age.
yeah,
Songwriters, painters, writers. I mean, it's not like you would say, oh, you're 65 now, you should stop writing books. So why should you stop playing fucking bands? You know what I mean? As long as you love
so
it, as long as it gives you something and, you know, then don't turn it off just because you think, oh, I've passed a certain age now, you shouldn't do it anymore.
two more questions.
Right.
Uh, Stuff that you're digging, punk hardcore wise, is there anything new or old or whatever? And just one or two things?
Well, like I said, the Kicks Herg record I really, really loved a lot. Um, what else have I liked recently, punk wise? I mean, this is also saying age. You think, yeah, it was a really good record, and you realize, like, fuck, it's like 3 or 4 years ago now. Like a band like Life Wreck from Athens. That's why I probably mentioned Athens earlier. It's really, really good. Llama from Sweden, who are
Yeah, great
older
stuff.
dude as well, but fucking awesome.
Classic, but brilliant.
Yeah, really good.
All right.
Um, I guess they're all older bands. No, the Life Wreck guys, I guess, a little bit younger, I suppose. Yeah.
Uh, Band that you've seen lately, punk hardcore that you really enjoyed?
Again, like Kriegshög was fucking
Yeah, that made
insane.
me jealous.
Yeah, I mean, also thinking that, probably thinking that you'd never get to see them coming from Japan, and
Yeah.
Japanese bands don't have a lot of time have the possibilities to tour a lot outside their own country and stuff. So that was fucking incredible. And
And last, next alarm show. When you playing again?
the next show is in November in Stockholm. We played a bit now in the spring, but now we're all on our summer holidays, as you can see, as we do
Yeah,
here in
look, look,
Sweden.
look. Yeah, we have to point
Like,
out the fact that this lad from Corby is now in his summer home in Sweden on his extensive summer break.
who says punk rock can't take you far? Or maybe it's just getting an education and getting a job. I don't know. But yeah, no. So the next gig, because we're all on a bit of a break now, and then we're actually gonna do a bunch of recording in the autumn, and then we're doing a show in Stockholm in November. With it's pretty funny. As I'm talking about being older as well, this would be a good way to end it. Because we're playing with this band called The Good, the Bad, and the Zugly from Oslo, Norwegian band, who kind of sound a bit like Turbo Negro-ish
All right.
punk, mixed with like a lot of irony. All their songs are like puns, like the song titles. And Jen absolutely loves them because I mean she loves like riffs and she loved Turbo Negro. Sounds kind of like quite a lot like Apocalypse Dudes era
Yeah.
Turbo Negro. Jen loves all that, so she like was mad. She got mad about this band, and we played in Oslo with Alarm earlier this year, and the sound engineer was the drummer in that band. Really
Amazing.
nice guy, and he was like, "Oh, because you guys are in Victims, right? We're like, yeah, because fucking hell, because I seen Victims along with maybe the singer or someone else in his band randomly play in New York in like 2011 or 2013, whatever it was. Seen us play like this small place in Manhattan, and it fucking blew me away. And after that, we started this band.
Oh wow.
We were like, fuck off. They're like, yeah. And he said, yeah, it's fucking one of our favorite bands. I'm like, fucking hell. And they're quite big now, this band. I mean, they're playing like the bass in Stockholm, which I think they sold out last time, which is about 700 people or something.
Wow.
So yeah, they asked us if we wanted to play with them when they played Stockholm supporting. And it's the day after Jen, my wife's birthday. She's like chuffed. So, yeah.
Amazing.
So
If
that'll
you
be the
get
next gig. And then we're going to plan a bunch more for next year, like little
wicked.
dribs and drabs weekends here. Like I
We
say,
know that's the best. And in his advanced years, it's the best way.
yeah,
Sustainable, physically and
yeah.
mentally.
And then yeah, like still doing like playing with this other band, Avoid, and we've recorded with them. We're playing with them in September in Stockholm. It's like a sort of instrumental sort of, don't want to use the word post rock because the rest of the guys hate that name, but it's kind of that way a bit. Uh, and then yeah, doing some other projects as well. So
Hope you're not wearing any shorts while you're playing on stage, though. All right. We'll leave
that
it.
should
We'll
be
leave it at
that
that,
should be
Gaz.
the theme of this whole podcast. Is that in joke? That red thread should be the shorts question. No, I do not wear shorts on stage.
Gay punk never dies, mate. Why not?